everyone, this is Jenny, and I am going to do my second video in my TBT series for sort of old and new things, or old things, and I'm actually combining it with my post for the Come On Get Crafty design team, and they have a new series that a new posting series for the designers to do an old and new combination of stash layouts or projects, cards or whatever, using old stash and some of the newer things, or older things of theirs and new stash. And so I thought I would kind of kill two birds and go ahead and combine all of those. And so what I decided to do was to use crepe papers things, and so I've got several older collections from the Come On Get Crafty shop, and then I have a new piece I'll show you. So I decided that what I was going to do is I wanted to use these photo overlays because they're squares, and because I like the kind of subtle colors, and they're going to go with the other colors that I picked. And so I'm not quite sure which ones I'm going to use yet. I'll pick them out. But I'm going to use a variety of the different sizes and sort of make a collage of sort of 2x2s and 3x3s, or 2x2s and 4x4s, and cut some of the papers to go with them. So that's kind of where that started out, by thinking about using that. And then I've got the close-knit epoxy brads that that I may use, and then this one piece of the close-knit papers. And even though I don't want to, I'm trying to make it squares, I thought it would be neat to kind of cut out squares but have them be circles inside of it, because that actually goes along with this other paper from the flea market collection that I really liked. So I thought it would be neat to have lots of the squares but have circles within them, or that be circular paper. So that's another piece from the flea market collection that I love, the color, but I may use the text. So, and then I have the 6x6 pad of the same thing, which might be nice for some of the smaller patterns. So those are the older pieces, and then I have this new piece of the Kiss Kiss collection. This is the chipboard that I bought, and I have not amazingly dug into it yet. So I love that it had the same, that's kind of inspired me to the same, except I'm not sure what size those are, but let's see, they're 1 3/8. So I may mat those and use some of those squares, or have some of the circles that are inside the bigger squares. So the great thing about crepe paper and about all these three is that the colors work so well together. I mean, the pinks work together, and there's lots of things that'll, it's not going to be a Valentine's layout, but I think they'll work a lot together. And I have also some other things I pulled out were some just white modeling paste. That's Teresa Collins, which is lovely to work with, and this metallic gold Dreamweaver embossing paste that I've used before, that's a very subtle gold. And I thought about using this stencil that's sort of the like a doily stencil. It's from Christy Tomlinson, and I think it was in a scrapbook circle kit maybe 2 years ago, and it's one of my favorites, but I thought it would work well with that first piece of the crepe paper with the doilies on it. So anyway, we'll see. I may not even use any of that. And then I've also got some a little square punch that's almost 2 inches, and a little heart punch. And these are the photos I printed out of my daughter, and I printed them all, sized them out to be 2x2s. So I may not use all of them. I may just use 4 of them. She looks a little sleepy in this picture, but I was trying to get her to smile and let me take a picture, because she had just come in from outside and her cheeks were kind of flushed. Of course, it's a black and white, but her cheeks were flushed, and she looked really cute. And my son was off camera, off to the side, and said something that made her start laughing, and she could not stop. So that's pretty much the way a photo shoot goes in our house these days. So anyway, I loved scrapping things in a series, either I usually stick to one photograph, but if it's a series, I like to do sort of, you know, things that happen in a series like that that kind of tell more of the story or in the moment kind of things, or sort of, you know, series like birthdays all the way through in the same year kind of thing. So anyway, I've been doing a lot of these kind of, you know, in the moment sequence pictures, all taken right back to back to back. So I'm going to I think I'm going to use this piece of cream cardstock as my base and start cutting up some paper into squares. So I am going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I started out by trimming my pictures down into the squares. I sized them at 2 by 2. I actually had debated going back and reprinting them either a little bit bigger or in a sepia tone, because everything sort of was this creamy tone and I couldn't decide whether or not it looked right with the black and white pictures, but I ended up leaving them the way they were. So I'm just sifting through the overlays now to pick which ones I want, and I pretty much stick to the pinks and the sort of mint color, and laid those out kind of the way I thought they might be, sort of starting at the right and kind of moving over to the left, and thought I would just have one of those masked doilies in the background, but ended up using more than that. So I start trimming down the bigger pieces of paper into 4x4s or 2x2s, and I didn't really plan it out too much. I just knew that I wanted some of the more subtle colors in there, and then some of those bigger patterns, and then a little bit of the smaller patterns. So I don't believe I ended up using any of the big word sheet. I think I used the smaller 6x6 pad for that. So I just fiddle around for a while and figure out how I'm going to lay these out. And that dark blue was kind of the only thing that really I couldn't decide whether I really liked it or not, that dark blue from that close knit paper. So I just had that one and tried to space the rest of it out. So it takes me a while to fiddle around with these and figure out whether or not I want to have them actually overlaying the pictures or as sort of a background for the other ones. And I kind of wanted to go ahead and take those chipboard pieces out, and I wish they had popped out from the background too, so I could kind of figure out how they were going to be. But this is where I decided that maybe white would be better instead of that cream color. And that's what I went with in the end. I think it took me a little while to come to that decision. I thought I might mount the white onto the cream background, and then I changed my mind about that too and used a different background to mount it on. So just flipping through the 6x6 now, trying to decide. I wanted one sort of stronger piece in the middle, but I didn't want it to be that pattern, so I think I ended up trimming down, instead of that 4x4, I think it may be 3x3 that those other overlays, the larger ones, are sized at. So I used that kind of as a guide and then just went from there. I did only use those 4 instead of that 5th photograph that I thought she looked a little sleepy in. I normally like 5 or like a different sort of number, and I heard something the other day that said that if you use an even number, your mind automatically tries to count them, but if you have odd numbers, it makes it more dynamic because you're not trying to count it, you're just trying to you're just looking at what the image is, if that makes sense. So I ended up using that other piece of the close knit paper, that dark teal color in the middle, sort of to pop that one piece out. And it takes me a long time to figure out how I want to lay these out. A really long time. And I go back and forth. On the whole, though, this layout actually didn't take as long as I thought it might. It was maybe about an hour and a half, which is a pretty good which is pretty good for me, especially because my camera battery died and then the backup battery died, and so I had to do some switching around like that. But all in all, it went pretty fast after it took me a while to figure out where these were going to go. So now that I kind of decided where those were going to go, I decided to go ahead and use this mask on the background. And I think I had decided maybe I would punch out some pieces and reinforce those squares, but I ended up covering up that one with a piece of chipboard, so I decided not to do that. And I kind of mess around with those for a while, but I decided not to put any chipboard on there until after I had done the background, which took a while to dry, so that was probably a good thing. Okay, so now I've got everything ready to do this masking in the background. And one of the things that I wish I had thought about and didn't, I had used gold paint on this before, like a gold mist, or actually it was enamel paint, spray paint on that. And so the enamel, actually, the gold kind of made my paste dirty. And it turned out okay because it made it a little bit more of that kind of cream-based color, but it wasn't as nice as the kind of and clean as the sort of mint alone would have been, which looked pretty nice. And this is that Teresa Collins embossing paste, which is just like softened butter. It is so nice to work with, easy, it spreads great, and it's easy to kind of taper off. And so I went ahead and did that mask in 3 places just to kind of give a little bit of texture under all of it. And I used the that Heidi Swapp mint ink and just put some on my craft mat and dyed the embossing paste with it. So it was very subtle, but I really liked the color that came out. I had debated just doing white, but I'm glad it came out like that. So I actually let that sit and dry for a while my camera battery, my new camera battery, was changed. And after that dried, I tried to remember how I had laid this out, which I didn't take a photograph. I should have done that. So I think that's kind of the way I'd had it. And that's kind of what I had thought about what it would be like in my head, kind of starting from heavy on the right side and tapering off to the left. So I go ahead and commit to putting the main pieces down, and I use this vellum tape runner, which I didn't like at first, but I realized that you have to go very lightly on it and you can't let it get gummed up or let it kind of get bogged down with any of extra of the adhesive on the end of it, because then it will definitely show up on the. So it's kind of a pain to work with, but it does do a lot better than a regular adhesive would. So I put all my pictures on Pop Dots, and then some of them I mounted on some of those other squares, or I guess all of them I mounted on other squares. Or that one is on one piece of the that sort of mint color overlay. And then I've got that one photograph, which was actually the first one I took before the giggling fit happened, and that was the one in the middle there. So now that those are all down, I take out the chipboards and decide where I'm going to place all of those, and that takes another while too, because I had originally thought I would have these squares, and then the inside the square, either by pattern of paper or by the chipboard, would be a circular element. But it didn't end up working that way because I couldn't. I didn't like that darker color. I wanted a little bit less of that. I like the lighter pinks, and I did end up using some of the gold. So that one there, that darker, "You Are Loved," I think that's what it says. Or whatever it says, that kind of wreath form, that just was too distracting for me, so I ended up pulling that up and putting the big giant heart there. And these colors work so great. I mean, this is that new Valentine's line, and then the other ones are not Valentine lines. They're just some of their previous ones that all the pinks are sort of similar. Even the hot pinks are similar. I mean, so they all work really well together, which is what's great about doing something like this, where you're using several different collections but from the same manufacturer. Some of the chipboard, though, well, I used adhesive on the on top of the acetate because it didn't really stick, and then some of the chipboards actually pulled up, or I had to take a couple of them up anyway, so some of those I did pull up. And I pretty much just finish up by adhering all the rest of the photos and just messing around with some more chipboard, and I add 3 of those epoxy brads that are all from that close-knit collection. I can't remember the last time I actually punched through with brads instead of just adhering them to the front or to pulling off the metal and hot gluing them on there, so that was kind of neat. I mean, they're not, it's only a year-old collection, but still, or I think a year or 2, maybe. And then I used one of those sort of spaces of the squares. I really liked that string of hearts, but it was just too distracting. And I ended up sort of covering up a lot of that piece of the close-knit paper with the sort of embroidery hoops on it that I had really liked that kind of blue to begin with, but I do think, I mean, you can still get a piece of it showing, and so I like that heart there. I did trim it down by about, I think, ½ an inch on each, ½ an inch overall, and then I mounted it to this other piece of crepe paper. I believe it's the flea market collection, that's that black and white sort of pinstripe. I thought it brought out the black a little bit in the photographs and was a nice contrast instead of using that cream color. So I had thought about using some of this. It's from the Notes and Things stickers that I have, but I hadn't really pulled that out before, so I didn't really want to use too much of it. I did use that one sticker there. And then I kind of got to the end and had totally forgotten about my title, so I ended up pulling up a couple of the pieces of chipboard to make room for my title. Oh, that's another piece of the sticker sheet from that Notes and Things. I did use the tab stamp for the date. And I wrote my journaling there at the bottom with a new pen that I am absolutely in love with. I think it is a Uniball. It's a Uniball Vision Elite, and it's in brown, and it's a really dark brown, but it's the most it's the prettiest color, and it's so easy. It writes great on that cardstock, even though it's got a lot of the texture to it. So that's the piece of chipboard that I pulled up, and when I did, the bottom piece of the adhesive came off, so I had to use Tombow to glue it down. And my title was going to be Smile Quick, since that was the whole point of this series of photos, but I couldn't make the quick fit because I didn't have enough room and I didn't plan it out to begin with, so I was going to spell it Q-U-I-K, and I didn't like the way that looked, and so I ended up going with fast, but my backup battery died at this point, so I didn't get to film that part of it. So here are the close-ups, and you can see the final product at the end. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure you go to the Come On Get Crafty website, the blog, and check out the other projects that are coming up. We have lots of new fun posts, different things each week, and all the new team members that are coming have great inspiration to provide. So thanks for watching. I'll be back next week with my next TBT video.